Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Caroline Logan, Programme Director for BuildForce, and I'm delighted to have with us today family-owned building and infrastructure company Sir Robert McAlpine and their incredible lineup of military magic. So are you sitting comfortably and are you ready to be inspired? So sit back and enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Caroline. So welcome to the BuildForce Virtual Career Chats. My name is Angela Forbes. Now, yesterday in many primary school playgrounds, you could hear, don't you remember, the 5th of November, 'twas Gunpowder Treason Day. I let off my gun and made them all run and stole all their bonfires away. And last night, across the UK, communities put on their wellies and stood together on communal patch of grass to watch an often stressed fire marshal light a bonfire and watch a glorious fireworks display. So I hope your little people, however you celebrated it, had their sparklers in hand and had a ball. Now, this week we also see Remembrance Day on Sunday, and I hope you are watching or taking part in ceremonies remembering the service and sacrifice of all those that have defended our freedoms and protected our way of life. Now, the team at BuildForce, our employers and our industry appreciates and respects all that you, our military community, do for us, the sacrifices that you and your family have made and continue to make whilst serving. So we thank each and every one of you for all that you do. And BuildForce is our way of giving back. So we aim to help you as best we possibly can. And standing beside us today to do that, we welcome Sir Robert McAlpine. So Robert himself, a bricklayer by trade from outside Glasgow, founded the business in his local area during the 1800s, and it has grown to be one of the most respected and largest family-owned building and civil engineering companies in industry. So we extend a very, very warm welcome to the McAlpine team today. So we welcome Mike Hickson, Managing Director of Defence, who will kick off our presentation and introduce his team. So Mike, we will hand over to you. We will switch off our cameras, allow you to bring your presentation up.
Whilst that comes up onto the screen, as Angela and Caroline said, Sir Robert McAlpine, we've been around for a long time, and I'll go through a short presentation to sort of outline that for you. Hopefully you can see the slides. And hopefully it's on full screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, great. So what the team that we've got here today is Rachel Smith. Rachel's got the poppies behind her, as you can hopefully still see her. Andy Maxwell and John French. And Jamie Brewer is joining us as soon as he can get off a call. But as he's a bit later on in the presentation, that should not be a problem. So what I want to do just for the next sort of 10 minutes is just give you a quick outline around Sir Robert McAlpine, the business, where we've come from, and perhaps more importantly for some of you on the call, what we're going to be coming up to do in the near future. So the business, as Angela said, has been around since 1869. And I know it's a bit small, but hopefully you can see that it started with a single mine chimney up in the north in 1869, and then over many years the business has been very much part of the UK's infrastructure. So we started building things like Wembley Stadium. Any of you who've been down to Arromanches doing a battlefield tour and seen the Mulberry Harbours that were there, they were a product from Sir Robert McAlpine. We started at the Port Talbot Iron and Steel Works in the 1940s, just after the war. We've been building power stations, the Nissan car factory, manufacturing plant, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Lots of semiconductor plants over the years. Some of you will have been to Colchester Garrison and served there. We built that, the latest version, I have to say. The Olympic Stadium. And so it goes across. You can see the various jobs that we've been doing. So who are we as a company? Well, very much as Angela said, this is still a family business. So Ed McAlpine is our chairman and executive partner. Hector McAlpine is our executive partner and the senior partner on the board. And we are very much led by the family. So Andrew McAlpine is still here and often in the office. Mr. David McAlpine, I think well into his 80s, pops in on a regular basis. So this is a family business. but it is run by Neil Martin, the CEO, and his board. And Rachel is about to go onto that board and the executive leadership team there. So, you know, there's a great story for an individual. I mean, she was in the Gunners, which, you know, is a bit odd, but she has made it. So even if you're a gunner, you can get there. And I say that, and I see she's still smiling. So that's good. How are we structured? Well, sitting underneath that board, we have three sectors: commercial, healthcare, and industrial. And also underneath that is the engineering technical services branch. And so we bring those organizations together to create the capability that McAlpine brings. But we also enhance that capability with three in-house capabilities. The first one is the McAlpine Design Group. So we have some designers, particularly specializing in early works. They're really good at doing that design for things that other people perhaps will struggle with. We then have our plant facility. For any of you who drive on the motorway past Kettering, you'll see our green towers parked up there. You'll see our plant machinery parked by the side of the motorway. And then the third one is McAlpine Lifting Solutions. And if you look at that particular picture, it's 2 Finsbury Avenue in London, literally just across the road from where I am. That crane that's there is a McAlpine crane. The design, though, to hang it up on the side of the building came from the McAlpine Design Group. And so what you have in that one picture is the culmination of those three entities, that in-house expertise, a design to hang a major crane off the side of a building over the top of a pedestrian walkway, the equipment coming from McAlpine plant, and then the lifting solutions, putting all of that together to create that capability. So there's a really nice example of the in-house capability that McAlpine brings. I thought I'd just quickly go through a number of the jobs that we have done, those that we are doing, and those that we're hoping to do in the future. And the first one I wanted to pick was this one, the Nissan manufacturing facility. We've been working with Nissan for 39 years, and that's not unusual for McAlpine. One of the things we really want to do is work with clients over an enduring period of time, because what happens is they then begin to realize the qualities that we bring, the values that the family bring into the company, and then those extra assets that we can bring to help when we deliver a job. And many people in McAlpine have been here for 20, 30, 40 years. There is a lunch that regularly takes place with the family where they host people who've been here for more than 40 years. So that family ethos runs through how we do some of these projects. We're just back in Nissan manufacturing plant at the moment because Nissan are now building electric vehicles. We need to strengthen all the facilities there to deal with the extra weight that comes from the electric vehicles. I'm a particular car fan. That beautiful building just outside Woking, the McLaren Production Centre, that was built by McAlpine. Ultra fast. Construction timeline was over 12 months. Real attention to detail. Any of you who know of Ron Dennis, who's the executive chairman of McLaren at the time, absolute stickler for getting it right. And that's a great example of where McAlpine brought their expertise to bear. Pinewood Studios, a number of phases there. We've been on phase 1 and phase 2. Amazing piece of work that we're doing there, and particularly looking at the ecology side of life. Just because we're building buildings, we also need to get the sustainability and the ecology into it. So that's very much part of how we deliver some of our projects. I mentioned Colchester Garrison earlier. I think this was really one of the first big construction projects for the British Army. We were part of the PFI, and in fact, McAlpine Capital Ventures produced some of the money for the PFI. We don't own it anymore. We sold it, but at the start of this process, it was McAlpine money, and then McAlpine built it. And I think for those of you like me, who spent many years in old knackered barracks, to go into the Colchester Garrison and see how modern facilities can really enhance our capability. That just gives you an example again of something we can build. Battersea Power Station, many of you as you come in towards London Bridge will see that on the right hand side. We built the main sort of difficult phase 3A of the construction of it. It was the 167-room hotel, but again, very different to something like Colchester Garrison, but a unique building, and we're very proud of what we've achieved with that particular building. And then a couple of other examples. We do have within the business a heritage capability. So we've just finished refurbishing Elizabeth Tower with Big Ben in it in London. And that is a very unique piece of capability. Not many companies own that. And I'll come on in a minute to something else that we do with them. So not only can we do the big and shiny, but we can actually get into the real detail of the history. And there we need specialist stonemasons, etc., to enable us to deliver that. And then almost direct opposite of that, the US Embassy in London, we built that absolutely modern building, but with all the security aspects required by the Americans, and the joy of having both American and UK standards that we had to meet. And things like the blast protection required in there was unlike anything else that people have delivered in the UK. So two very different buildings that we've been building over the years. And Buckingham Palace, we're there now working for the Keeper of the Privy Purse, refurbishing Buckingham Palace. But again, at the same time, we're working for British Land around Liverpool Street Station, 2 Finsbury Avenue, the top one there, 69-storey commercial office building. That's the one where we hung the crane off the side of it. And then Broadgate and Liverpool Street, those have finished now. We've handed those over to British Land. Again, a relationship with a client who continues to employ us because we do a good job for them the first time around. Agratas, this is a new job for us. We've started it this year. It's the multi-billion-pound gigafactory for the batteries that are going to be required in this country. We're doing the first phase of it at the moment, and we are recruiting people right now. There are 450 people currently working on Agratas. It's down in Somerset, in Bridgewater, about 40 minutes from Bristol. And, you know, we will be developing this, and we hope to win the other parts of this particular project as we go through, you know, basically working on the basis that we do it right the first time. The client will come back to us and ask us to do the rest. Also at the moment, Sellafield up in Cumbria. We've been on Sellafield for, again, something like 55 years. Those circles in yellow we built originally and over the last few years, and we're currently working on the 3 circles in red. And that project we hope will expand, and we hope to bring more people on as we develop that particular project. And then this one, I came to McAlpine from High Speed 2. I was on the client side at High Speed 2 as the program director, and McAlpine joined into a joint venture called Align JV, and McAlpine themselves built this, the Com Valley Viaduct. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it is the most magnificent piece of architecture, but also it's a fantastic building in terms of it being a bridge. But it's designed to look like stones skipping across the Hillingdon Lakes. And if you get a chance to go and have a look at it, it is extraordinary. And ultimately will be the longest, or still is actually, I think now, the longest bridge, railway bridge in the UK. I mentioned Port Talbot when I was going through the various pieces that McAlpine had built. Yes, we built Port Talbot, the original one, in 1945. Well, we're back. And this again is part of that sort of repeat work that we like to do. We're now turning this into an electric arc furnace, and that particular job is really just starting up. We're in the initial stages of it. So again, looking to recruit and bring people into Port Talbot. And both Port Talbot and Agratas, we have employed a number of veterans to come in and start working there. And then finally, Therme. We won this a couple of months ago. We're going to start in the middle of next year. This is the massive sort of leisure part that's going to be just outside Manchester, £400 million build. So that will start to require people. It'll start to require us to do the work. And just before I finish and hand over to Rachel, I should also mention the defence aspirations I have. So I've been brought in to set up a defence sector for Sir Rob McAlpine. We're planning on bidding and have already pre-qualified for Barrow-in-Furness and BAE for the new submarines. We're planning on bidding for some of the work that AWE and Aldermaston are looking to pull together. And both of those, should we win them, are 10-year projects. So we will need significant number of people as we start to win those projects and go forward. So it's a real rapid run round some of the things that McAlpine have been doing, who we are, and what we are looking to do in the future. Happy to take questions or drop notes into the chat and I can pick them up, but I'll do that at the end. What I'll now do is just hand over to Rachel, if I may, and stop sharing the slides, Rachel, for you to talk about McAlpine and our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Lovely. Hi, everybody. So Rachel Smith. I was in the Royal Artillery, as Mike has already mentioned. Thank you, Mike. For 10 years, served in multiple operational tours, and I joined SRM 13 years ago as an HR business partner. And then, as Mike said, I've recently been appointed as the Director of People, Property and Shared Services. The support for the Armed Forces community at McAlpine runs right from the top of the organisation in the projects that they do, their charitable giving and the people that they employ. The McAlpine family are passionate and committed in their support. And it's not only because they appreciate and recognise the the soft skills that veterans provide, but also they particularly understand the value those skills bring in the construction industry, and I will touch on that right at the end. So about 10 years ago, Ed McAlpine and myself ran a recruitment event with directors of our supply chain and leaders within McAlpine to encourage the recruitment of veterans, and it worked. We recruited quite a high number at the time, but it didn't stick in the way that it should have. And when I reflect back, I think that's probably because it was a few people who were really very passionate, but when those people lost focus and had other priorities, it lost momentum. So then about 18 months ago, we had a new chief executive join, who's very passionate in his support to the Armed Forces community. And then, as Mike said, we created a defence sector, which Mike is leading. And both Mike and Neil came and found me and quite rightly challenged, why aren't we doing more? And I had this realization that actually we'd lost momentum. And, when you get the former director of the Royal Logistic Corps and the chief executive asking you to sort something out, you put it quite high on your priority list. So I was not going to make the same mistake twice. And I knew instinctively the mistake was not creating strong advocacy. So this time when we launched our strategy, it was in 3 parts: recruit, retain and advocate. And the recruitment and the retention parts of it are actually relatively easy, particularly when you've got such an amazing partner like BuildForce. It's the advocacy that needed more work. So about a year ago, we launched we had a launch event for our strategy. It was at the HAC, slightly biased that as a venue, being a former gunner officer, but it was an amazing venue. We got all of our senior leaders there. The family, Sir Andrew McAlpine was there as well, and we launched our strategy. We also did a series of hiring manager events to really grow that advocacy. We did some work with our recruitment team so that they were fully invested, so that we could maintain momentum when they were engaging with hiring managers. We get our veterans involved in CVs and helping our hiring managers understand CVs of a veteran, get our veterans in interviews so that they can really support both sides of the table during an interview. And we've done many events, which this is one, with BuildForce, highlighting the construction industry and SRM as an obvious fit for veterans. And we've recruited just over a dozen this year. Now, the recruitment environment in which we're operating in, that is actually a really high number. And when you look at it proportionally across the number of people that we've hired, that's a really strong number. So we're really proud of that. And we only see that growing. And our partnership with BuildForce has been so critical in our success and the success of the veterans that come through BuildForce. So to whichever extent right now you are engaging with BuildForce, increase it. Whatever it is, just do more of it, because they are great. They are so good at helping you along that journey into your next career. So as we move into the second year of our strategy, it's about continuing recruitment, it's about continuing support for the armed forces community, but it's about wider advocacy actually in our second year. So we're going to go deep into our supply chain to really get that appreciation much wider in the industry around the value that the armed forces community can bring. And then we're also going to go across the whole community of our armed forces, so families, for example, and spend a little bit more time and focus around that. The armed forces community that we have in our organisation, there are 23 of us, which is quite a high number actually, but they are made up of supporters of, so I think Penny joined the call, she's from our recruitment team, she's in the armed forces community. We've got our veterans, we have got partners of veterans, and just general supporters as well as veterans themselves. So that is quite a strong community. We're going out into the southwest next week, where a lot of our veterans are, to just spend some time with them and continue to grow as a community. Just one last thing from me before I hand over to Andy. It's probably just worth me highlighting which particular skills we talk to our hiring managers about. What we articulate is the value that a veteran can bring. So we talk about the resilience and the determination that you have, and that it has no boundaries because of what you've been through in your military service, and that then manifests itself in an ability to get through difficult challenges and a determination to just be the best that you can be for the team that are around you. And it's about caring about the team in the bigger picture rather than yourself. And then when we translate that into our projects, where sequencing and dependencies are so great, that is really key to our success. And then we also tell our hiring managers that actually leadership and management is not this military gimmick. It's a real thing. People are selected into the military because they have those natural skills, and defence then pays lots of money to nurture and refine it. So why wouldn't we as an industry take advantage of that? And it's things like that ability to have a difficult conversation with somebody without actually knowing that they're having it because of character, that ability to get things done that somebody might not otherwise want to do, and how that translates onto our projects and performance and productivity on our projects is enormous. And we say to them, just imagine if you had a couple of those people in your teams, how that culture just grows, and how the project is all the much better for it. So thank you for listening to me. I now hand over to 3 of our veterans. They all have a slightly different story to tell about their journey into construction and their career whilst they have been with us. But I won't say any more about what they're going to tell you. Andy, I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Good afternoon. I'm Andy Maxwell. I've now been with McAlpine for sort of nearly 9 years. Having left the REME back in sort of 2016 after completing LAD command with 2 Yorks as my last posting. Mike and Rachel and I, so I could kind of talk through my sort of journey from leaving the military to becoming a building services manager with McAlpine. For those of you that are not particularly familiar with the construction industry, might be asking what a building services manager does, but I mean, hopefully I'll cover that, but don't worry, because I probably had no idea when I actually accepted the job from McAlpine's what it was, and 9 years later there's still bits of it I'm still finding out now. But as McAlpine's has developed its veterans network and subsequently the sort of support structure that it's put in place for the veterans that have transitioned from the military into the construction industry, it's enabled me to go back and kind of reflect on my sort of journey and sort of look at what was kind of the key pointers that I needed to either improve on or what worked really well. So my plan is to kind of talk through my transition journey with you, kind of sharing slightly and a small bit of what the role of a building services manager is, and then highlighting probably the key lessons that I've learned through this sort of process, and what you could potentially sort of take away and look at potentially moving into the construction industry. So looking at my transition then, how did I end up in the construction industry from the military, and how was I able to probably adapt into this new environment that I had absolutely no idea of before I joined. I was approaching the last 6 months of my career in the army, really unsure of what sort of career path to follow next. And I certainly had no sort of prior knowledge of the construction industry. From graduating from university, my entire career had been with the army, so I kind of had to do a bit of soul searching and ask myself, what skills do I bring to a civilian employer? And then Rachel's just started to cover off some of those as she talked through that with the hiring manager there. But reflecting on the skills I developed over the time in the military: leadership, teamwork, communication, stakeholder management, flexibility, problem solving, conflict resolution, your initiative, self-motivation, risk management, and then tying that in with my background from the REME in terms of engineering management. I probably had something there on paper that I could work with, but it was then sort of translating that into a new role. But if you look at all those core competencies that and even if you take out for a lot of the kind of veterans that will be on this call, take away the engineering management side of it, those core competencies have significant value in kind of any industry, but even more so in construction. It's a really fast-paced industry where there's lots of diverse teams that need managing on complex problems and complex projects. And there's a lot of times we need to adapt and overcome to changing conditions, and those skills that you've honed over time in the military will certainly come into their own in the construction industry. They're directly transferable and can be utilised in any project sort of based sector, but even more so the construction industry. You'll hear from obviously the other veterans at McAlpine today, and you'll notice that our paths and careers will all have been really different as kind of veterans, and then as the sort of career we've kind of followed into McAlpines, all completely different. But the reason that we've been able to be successful and follow this sort of path is probably the underlying skills that we've got. So we took a skills mapping exercise and looked at there's a clear alignment between the skills that are required in the construction industry and the skills that are there in the military. And I suppose, and then if you look at on the flip side as well, the other side that we bring to the party as veterans is that sort of diversity, not necessarily in terms of background, but in terms of the skills, the problem solving, the approach, and the leadership qualities that we have. And by integrating those sort of diverse skills, into project teams and into construction teams, it really helps to strengthen performance. Fosters innovation, improves collaboration. We've helped drive better solutions. As veterans, we may not have the technical knowledge, in the construction industry in day one. I certainly didn't, and I'll go through that shortly. But you will have a range of skills that can ensure, even from the start, that you'll be able to really positively contribute to the teams that you're working with. When I joined SRM, the one thing that I didn't have was any sort of specific technical knowledge of working as a building services engineer. But my background in sort of problem solving, working under pressure, along with really good support that I got from McAlpine's teams that I work with, and really good technical mentor that sort of kind of picked me up from day one, helped me sort of through that process. I was able to really quickly adapt. I was really used to it in the military, changing jobs every 2 years, as sort of most of you will all be. And I just treated my new job as that. It was just a new job that I hadn't done before. I had to quickly transition. When I've gone from, say, in the army doing turn command to recruiting to LED command, all completely different jobs, but those skills that I've been able to sort of jump in and quickly work out what you need to do, all help me really quickly adapt. And as a result from that, I've gone from joining probably sort of a large project team as a relatively junior member. And by the end of that project, I went back to lead the closeout of that project as the project manager. So, it just shows that in a really short space of time, you can overcome some of those technical gaps and technical knowledge, then helps you take those big strides because of the supporting foundations of the things that you've got. So what does a building services manager do, and what can I do on my day-to-day role? It encompasses quite a wide range, and you'll probably hear from quite a lot of people in terms of the construction industry. There's, same as the army, there's never really a dull day. I sort of, most of the time I spend is kind of encompassing sort of managing and leading the design, installation and maintenance of sort of anything mechanical or electrical that goes into a building. Everything from water, gas, electrical, through to chillers, heating, generators, all the ICT, security systems, lifts. Responsible for ensuring that that's all being able to deliver it efficiently, right quality, the right affordability, right the way from design all the way through installation and handover for the life of the building. It could be a hospital, it could be a data center, it could be a school, it could be an office block, residential accommodation. Some of all the projects that and diverse buildings that we've been working on that Mike's been talking through at the start of the presentation. But if I look at kind of some of my sort of key responsibilities, and what I do kind of on a day-to-day basis, a lot of these are very similar to some of the roles that I was doing in the military beforehand. A lot of time I do project management, budget management, managing subcontractors and contract management, and then doing sort of compliance and assurance, all the things that, although I didn't really realise that I was actually probably quite comfortable with doing. And then tying that in now with the other side of my job, which is kind of the technical oversight, which thanks to the support of sort of McAlpines over the early years of my career, I was able to really sort of spend the time nurturing and developing. It's enabled me to kind of move on with my career today. So looking at that, what are the kind of key lessons learned that I've picked up? And I've kind of picked sort of probably three of these kind of moving forward from my time and having had the chance to look back and reflect. So I think the first one of these is, network and speak to as many people as you can whenever you're leaving the military. You never know where that opportunity is going to come from. I got a foot in the door with quite a few sort of different companies from exploiting people that I knew, some of which were veterans that had already left, some of which were from my sort of university and friends network. Some of those were really helpful, some of those not so. And as I said a few times to other people, my Christmas party chat in 2015 was pretty dull in terms of telling everyone that I was leaving the military and hopefully, is there anything you could do to help me? But you really never know where an opportunity to come from. I got my job from McAlpines from a random phone call because of someone who my wife works with, who'd been chatting to her brother. And I suppose it shows the support network and the outside box thinking that McAlpines as a company. He randomly phoned me up. I had a chat, followed it through, and I thought that's probably gone nowhere. A few days later, I got a call from the project director, went in for an informal chat and left with a job offer. So, it's just sort of that clear line that, you don't know where it's come from, and I'll kind of cover it in one of my other points as a lessons learned. But, you never know where it's coming from. You need to kind of shape yourself to be in that sort of position to be able to take those offers when they come. And the other one is, and Rachel's also mentioned it, is, we're on the call with BuildForce today, and I was at a recruitment event with BuildForce earlier in the week. Their ability to connect you with the right people at the right level, really take advantage of that service they offer, it's fantastic. And they're into not just McAlpines if that's not the job and in the right place, but there's loads of people across the construction industry that they've got those links with. So, it's a fantastic service and take advantage of it. The second lesson, and this is probably one that I really didn't appreciate, and it's probably after being with McAlpines for probably 5 or 6 years that I really had the time to sort of reflect on this properly. And that was looking for the culture of the employer of who you're going to work with. McAlpines is a fantastic family company, really, really supportive network across. And the culture coming from a sort of military background, felt really familiar when I came across, and those family values really came through, and that really helped my support and development. And that cultural fit's been sort of really crucial in sort of my success and my development. I think the work that Mike and Rachel have done setting up the Veterans Network with McAlpines, is going to make us as a business, we're probably in an even better position to support that now going forwards. But with that, spend the time looking at the companies that are available, out there. Make sure it's that right fit, because it's a lot of effort sort of finding a job, and if you're going to be bouncing around shortly afterwards, so I know a few friends have. Because they haven't found that right, whether it's the right role or the right company, spend that little bit of time up front and kind of really understand the culture of the business that you're looking to join. And then my third one, and it's probably really related to the construction industry rather than just sort of that general transition across, is the construction industry is really fast paced, and there's lots of opportunities that come and go really quickly, particularly in the project level. Once a project gets a green light, there's often several vacancies that need to be filled really quickly, key positions, they need to be filled. So you need to be able to position yourself and understand who are the right people, and you're talking to the right people for when these jobs become available. Again, using your personal network, and again, I highlight the BuildForce network as well to be able to put yourself in the right place in the right time for this. But the other one on the flip side of that is, don't be disheartened, because as quickly as opportunities will come, they will also disappear as well. You know, it's quite often multiple contractors bidding for the same job. If they win that job, you know, and it's the company you're talking to, brilliant. But if they don't, you know, those jobs and opportunities will disappear as well. So, you know, it's a very fast-moving industry, and you know, you might have one or two bad experiences, but just take it on the chins. There'll be plenty of more good ones to come around the corner as well. So I think that's probably from me, and I believe I'm handing over to Jamie, who's going to kind of talk you through his journey instead.
Andy, thank you very much indeed. That was brilliant. I love the phrase exploiting people. I would just reinforce that. You know, that networking piece, you do require to exploit people. That is very much the right phrase. And it was something I found quite difficult when I left, was just constantly pushing on people, constantly asking people. The veterans network out there is vast, and you'll be amazed how helpful people will be, but you do have to really go and exploit it as best you can. And it's probably the strongest thing that will get you employment. So Andy, that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Jamie, I know you've joined because I saw you pop up. Are you here?
I am here. Can you see me? I've got my camera on.
Yep, we've got you. Over
Okay.
to you, Jamie, please.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And sorry I'm a bit late. It's meeting to meeting, unfortunately, today. So I'm Jamie. I've been with the company for almost 11 years. I spent 8 years in the Royal Marines, and in that time did 2 tours, and I left as a junior NCO, JNCO. So I was a section commander with a couple of tours of Afghan under my belt. For me, it was time to move on. And I did, and I went into construction, and I used my resettlement grants and my LCAS grants, put myself on some plumbing courses. And at that time, I was going to be a one-man band, answer to no man or woman, and just do my own thing. But very shortly, I ended up working for a subcontractor, getting on the tools and getting myself onto sites. And the sites I was working on is where I first started seeing site managers and seeing the role they did. And I was quite interested in that. So I tapped back into my LCAS grants, and I used that for the MCIOB course, members of the Chartership Institute of Building, and I did that for the following 2 to 3 years, and that helped me from an academic perspective as well as my on-site working, and I started building some experience and building some background knowledge. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was around 2014 that I got approached by an employment agency called Forces Select, who I think Rachel's aware of, and they told me about a company called Sir Robert McAlpine, and there was an opportunity there. So I took them up. I went and visited the company. I found out a bit about them, and I was given an opportunity to start with them. And my first role with McAlpines was as a work supervisor, and that was very much out on site, facilitating day-to-day coordination between trades, managing health and safety. It was a challenging role. You were on the front line, so to speak, and it was a really good insight into the kind of the nuts and bolts of how these projects get delivered. And I learned a lot. And it was a challenging job as well. I saw how it all went wrong, and I saw how we worked as a team to put it back together. And that role was for a few years, and that took me through to about 2017, where I moved into package management. And I managed to get onto a project where I could apply what I'd learned as a work supervisor. And I was on a site in Woking where I was involved in the upfront design and procurement of these packages. So that's where my on-site experience started kicking in. Oh, well, have we accounted for this? Have we accounted for that? We must build these different things into the packages. And I took several packages, internal packages at that time, dry lining, joinery, flooring, decorations. And I took what I'd learned, built it into these packages, took them through design, procurement, delivery, on-site delivery, and then handover. So I got to see the entire cycle, and that was under 2 different forms of contract. So how you manage those packages is slightly different as well, depending on what contract you're working under. So again, an invaluable experience, learned lots, very challenging. The sort of cut and thrust of the job is really the site delivery, where you really got to think on your feet, and it's a really good environment for working together with people collaboratively. There are challenging personalities out there, and part of the job is winning people over. We can all learn these processes and learn how things go together. I think one of the biggest aspects of what we do is getting the people to work together and work for a common cause. And of course, coming from a military background, you know, everyone's there to achieve a common objective. And you kind of instill that sort of mentality. And if you show you're there willing to help and aid these contractors get along, then, you know, they in turn help you. So again, that took me through for another couple of years. And during that project, I went from package management into section management. So I wasn't just looking after aspect like dry lining, joinery, and so on and so forth. I was given areas. So they wanted me to deliver areas of the building, multiple floors, guest rooms in a hotel, front of house areas, back of house areas. So all slightly different in detail and design, but the principles are the same. You're getting people to work together to achieve a common cause. And, you know, and that was me up until about 2021. At which point I'd pretty much had enough of internal fit out, and I got really interested in facades. And obviously this was post Grenfell, and the facade industry was really starting to change, and regulations were kicking in, and everything became a lot more stringent. So I was still on a job in Woking. One of the facades on the buildings at Woking didn't go to plan, and so there was some remedial works there in place, and I went onto the remedials team. And from 2021 to 2024, I was on the Woking team, and it was a great opportunity to learn about facade engineering. And whilst on that job around 2023, I expressed an interest in the master's course. So there's a master's out there, a master's degree in facade engineering. And so I put in for it. I said, I'd like to take on this course. I think there's a skill shortage of that in the business. I wrote a business case, and it was reviewed by HR and some business leaders, and they awarded me the opportunity to go on that course. So I was now working on a master's part-time over 2 years and working in a facade engineering role. So I was learning again academically, and it was being supported by what I was doing on site. So the two fed into each other really well. McAlpines have been very good over the years at investing in me, and in return I like to think that I've been paying them back by being able to positively contribute more and more to site delivery. And I would like to just say that my final result for the Masters has just come through, and I've passed with distinction. So I've come full circle there. Yeah, literally in the last half an hour that's come. So goes to show, and I don't come from
congratulations, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. I don't come from an academic background. It's my first time at university, and it just goes to show that if you're willing to put the effort in, it will pay back. And so I've done that, got the course under my belt. I'm in a facade management role in another project in central London at the moment. It's a busy project. We're managing 15 packages between us. I've got a team of 2 working with me, and between us, we're pushing it forward. And we're about 6 weeks away from handing over the first areas of the project. So the pressure's on, lots of site coordination, lots of difficult personalities to manage, but we're all working together for a common cause. So my route through all of this is pretty much grassroots up. I've stepped out of my comfort zone, and I've given things a go. And along the way, I've met people who I like to think have believed in me, and they've supported me all the way through. So it's there for the taking is my message. I think if you wanna do it, it's there for the taking, and that's me. Thanks for listening.
Jamie, that's absolutely brilliant, and I now feel very inadequate as I haven't yet got a degree. I say yet, probably a bit old at my stage, but there we go. Brilliant. Thank you so much. John, can we hand over to you now, please? And hopefully you've got some good news.
I'm hoping to give you some good news. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's John French. I'm one of the senior HR business partners in Sorrel McAlpine, and my journey into the construction industry is slightly different. I joined the army at the age of 16 as an infantry, what was at that point in time the Devonshire and Dorset Regiment. It was a county infantry regiment, and I spent 26 years with Veng. We did the last 2 years as last couple of years actually with Vane, and I left as a rifle company sergeant major in 2010. Loved the military. It was time to leave. And I had to make a choice at that point. I think I was in a career position that you either, and there was a couple of us at the time, sergeant majors, thinking, right, do we stay in and try and go for, I'm not saying I would have got in, but try and go for an LE commission, or do you leave and try and make it with a separate career and a new career? And at that point in time, I made the decision to say, right, it was going to be time that I left. However, at that last 12 months, I was still unsure what to do. You know, I didn't know exactly what I was going to find and what job I was going to do. And before you knew it, I had this huge ground rush moment. The last 6 months, the time was coming and I was about to leave the military. And I really hadn't given it that much thought because I was just getting on with my day job. Reality kicked in. Wife turned around and said, look, you need to do something. It's coming. And I took this initiative to say, right, I need to apply for a job. And at that time, I used the Career Transition Partnership, and I thought, similar to Jamie, I was going to be this one-man band. I was going to get into plumbing. I was going to be a gas fitter, and the world was going to be amazing. So I went and done some career transitions, and I went with a company at the time called Connaught, and I became a qualified plumber, gas fitter, and I was going to be a heating engineer. That was my dream. That's where I was going to go. And at the same time, I also thought I need some project management skills. So I used the Career Transition Partnership, and I ended up doing Prince 2, becoming a practitioner in APND, and that's where I was. The last 6 months then, I started to apply for roles, and unfortunately, I didn't know anything about Sir Robert McAlpine at the time. There was an advert, still didn't know what I was going to do, but I started looking for jobs that I thought I could do, and there was one in there, and it was a role called a regional admin manager. And I thought, I can do admin. I've been a CQMS. I've been I know how to do admin. That's something I can do. So I applied for this role called a regional admin manager, not knowing exactly what that role was. I just looked through what was an advert on the web page and thinking, right, I can do that, I can do this. And there's some of the jobs I didn't even know what it was. I went for a job interview with one of the family members, actually. It was Hector McAlpine at the time. And one of the interview questions says, do you understand what PIR was, which is a passive infrared? And I thought, I've nailed this, I've got the job, I know what a PIR is. And it got to the point, I went through the interview, and I can always remember the call that I took this phone call this one morning, and they offered me the job over the phone, and my wife was sat next to me. And I looked at her, I was still, I was still shocked at that point, saying, like, he's just offered me a job. And I can remember asking her, what do I do? And she just said, take the job. So I took the job, not knowing what I'd got myself into. And then even on the day that I joined Sir Robert McAlpine, I remember it as if it was yesterday, October the 4th, 2010, I broke down on the way to work. So I was late for the first day. And I thought, right, of all the things to be late on, I'm now late on day one. I got there. And what I found out with that role as the regional admin manager was it was really facilities management. It was looking after what was a regional office. It was looking after the day-to-day running of the office. And I could do that well. It was something that I could just settle into. However, what I found and soon found over the next 12 to 18 months was, and Rachel's picked up on this, it's the fact that I found that I was getting more and more involved with managing difficult conversations. We had managers that didn't know how to have certain conversations, or if they had those conversations, it wouldn't land so well. So that I would start being involved in conversations about managing performance and managing difficult conversations. And I found that relatively easy. And it was something that I could just naturally do. And I thought, well, this is normal for a lot of veterans and a lot of ex-service leavers. This is what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I started to find myself getting more involved. And at that point in time in 2010, and it was a similar time to when Rachel came in, we didn't have a structured HR department of what we've got now. But I knew that being an admin manager wasn't all I wanted to do. I could provide more than this currently in Sir Robert McAlpine. So I started to look and explore. And one of the routes I started to look for was health and safety. I thought, if I'm managing difficult conversations, I can go down the health and safety route. The business invested me at that time, and I ended up doing a course called a NEBOSH course, and I became NEBOSH qualified, and getting involved in that aspect. However, my true finding really was then when we were getting more and more in employment law and more involved with people and managing the full life cycle of the people, our staff. It was HR that I started to work towards. And within the construction industry, we are. I was just fortunate the fact that with Sorrel McAlpine there was a lot of investment. There was a lot of investment in training. So even though I started my journey, I was navigating my way through, taking the opportunity, seeing an opportunity and jumping at it. And I asked to get more involved with HR, and we have transferable skills. As veterans, we all have transferable skills. And what the construction industry is, and I ask members of staff even today, do you understand the business you are in as a tier 1 contractor? And when you look at what we do, we're in the people business. That is what we are. We don't actually build anything. The byproducts of what we do are these fantastic buildings and these fantastic construction sites. But as a tier 1 contractor, we manage the builders who build for us. So it's all around about the conversations you have to manage the performance and get the best out of our people. And whether or not that's having a conversation with an employee or having a conversation with a subcontract. So I found myself enjoying that side of life and in the development of people. And also, when I often reflect back on what were the similarities with construction and my military career. And it's quite unique of what we do in the military. And I'm only talking to the Army now, whilst I've got a brother who's in the Navy, and I don't know that rank structure. As a military person, you have a private, lance corporal, corporal, sergeant, colour sergeant, warrant officer, officer. There was a structure. There was a uniform within the military, DPM and helmet. And when you start to refer that back to the construction industry, in the construction industry, whether or not you're operational engineers, you have a graduate engineer, package engineer, section engineer, chief engineer, construction manager, project manager. There's a uniform, it's high vis and a white helmet. So there was these similarities, and I found myself, you know what, this is somewhere that I could stay. And the business has invested me over the last 15 years where I am today. And the journey that I'm now on is that I'm at the highest I could be in terms of our professional body for being a member of the HR community. As a professional body, we have a body called the CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Personal Development and People Development. And the highest you can get within that is this function is to become a fellow. The business saw that as a transferable skill. They've invested me to become through an associate to a chartered member and now a fellow within my professional body. And the diverse role that we have from being an infantry warrant officer to where I am now managing the day-to-day full life cycle of all of our employees, from onboarding, supporting our talent team, for bringing people into the business, managing the development of our employees throughout the whole business mind, from our graduates to our senior leadership team members on their development, on their leadership, and having conversations around performance. It is so diverse and so wide, and there's so much job satisfaction that you can get from that role. And it's a role now that I've never really used the plumbing skills, whilst I do it on the weekend for stuff, but it's a skill that I thought I was going to have, I've not used, but you can find your way. And the one thing I would say is when you're leaving any of the services, no matter what, if you don't know your way, the part that Rachel mentions, the fact our resilience to, you know what, you will find your way, stay calm, we're good under pressure, we understand what that looks like. You will find your way. There's opportunities out there within the wider business and absolutely within the construction industry. When you look at Sorrel McAlpine now, if you were to water down all of the roles, there are approximately 210, 211 different opportunities, roles within there, from engineering, commercial, finance, admin, HR, onboarding. It's just a great opportunity and something that everyone should be able to get in and take that opportunity. And to the point whereas now I am a senior HR business partner. I'm in my 15th year within the business. I'm a senior HR business partner that is looking after one of those sectors. So I'm looking after what is the industrial sector, and some of those projects you saw Mike talk about was Project Invictus in Port Talbot, or the Agratas project in Somerset. So I'm looking after the life cycle of all of our staff that are on those projects, and it's a unique opportunity for me to add value and explore opportunities. Thank you.
John, great. Very good news. Thank you very much indeed. Just before we move on to questions, I'm just conscious I didn't actually explain who I was or what I'd done in the military. So I actually spent 30 years in the Army. I was RLC. As Rachel said, my last job was director of the RLC. I was Commander Log Support on 1Div on Telic 1, spent a lot of time in PGHQ. And like many of the others you've heard, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left. And I logically fell into logistics, and I went off to build an oil field in Kazakhstan. I was the logistics director, and we built this oil field in modules in South Korea, and my job was to move these modules to Kazakhstan. That job I got through my network. Ex-military individual actually found that job for me. I then was told through my network of a logistics job in High Speed 2. And that got me into High Speed 2 as the logistics director. And very quickly, and I'm talking less than 2 months, I'd moved on to become the program director, running the largest infrastructure program in Europe. Now, I'm not sure I had the skills to do that. And you've heard from everyone here, I think we step off every time you do your posting, don't you? You go into the next job thinking, can I really do this? And yet all of us have been successful. And so, whatever your thoughts on High Speed 2 were, I would say we did a brilliant job, and I'm really proud of the team that we had delivering that program. And as that program sort of developed, I decided to move on, and I looked across, a bit like Andy was talking about that fit piece. I looked across, where is the fit? Where is the company that I'll feel most comfortable with? And that took me to Sir Robert McAlpine. Chance that they were setting up a defence sector. I'd actually said when I was leaving the Army, I am not going to go back to defence, but I left in 2012. So this was a year and a bit ago. I joined McAlpine. So it's been, a good 13, 14 years out of defence. And it's been a real joy to come back. Apart from the fact that many people I was writing on confidential reports on as captains are now generals, which worries the hell out of me, but there we go. But what I'm trying to say is that find the right fit, find the right company, and you will find your way through. And I really do not know, genuinely, of individuals who've come and chatted to me who haven't got a job. And we are good at what we do, and we are very, very attractive to the commercial world, the civilian world. So have faith in yourselves, and I will guarantee you'll get a job. So let's open it up. Caroline, do you want to share here, or Angela, or are you happy I just...
Hi, Mike. Yeah, we'll see if there's any questions from the audience. If there's not, I'll ask a few just to warm us up. So just whilst we're waiting for a few to come through, again, Mike, thank you very much for opening us up today and for steering us through the presentation. It was absolutely brilliant, so thoroughly enjoyed it. So just a few things on what you mentioned. You mentioned the qualities and value the business and the family brings to Sir Robert McAlpine, and that very much reflects the culture, which is hugely important to our service leaver community. We do, as it's been picked up today, unfortunately see some of our veterans where the first role doesn't work out because the culture wasn't right for them. So how can those going through resettlement really understand and capture what a business culture really is, not the marketing spin on it, but who they really are?
I mean, I'll start if I may, and others dive
Please.
in. I mean, I think it's really challenging, because how do you get in to understand a business? The best way of doing it, and you will find virtually every company has them, is go and find the veteran network and talk to the veterans. And that is, again, expanding your network. But they are the individuals who understand the culture you're living in today, and therefore they will be able to understand whether you're going to be able to transition into it or not. And they will be honest with you as well. So that would probably be my first point. The second is many companies will offer you the ability to go and see and try. I mean, Andy talked about it a bit. He came and had a look at McAlpine. Ask a company, if you're interested in that company, ask them, can I come and do 2 weeks working with you to understand who you are and what you do and how I could fit in? And that will give you a very good indication of the culture. So I think those would be my 2 points. But just before I hand on to Rachel, the other thing I would say is don't worry too much about trying to get a perfect fit on your first job, because you don't really know. And, in fact, I think every one of us has said we didn't really know what we were coming to do. We saw the job title, but we didn't understand what was inside it. You sometimes need to go and try. And I do see an awful lot of people moving at the 2-year point. I certainly did, and I think a lot of others do. McAlpine does tend to keep people much longer, but you do have a natural tendency to move at the 2-year point. And actually, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because at 2 years, you understand who you are in the civilian world, but also you have a CV that's much more understandable to the civilian world. And so a lot of people do try to move at 2 years, and partly that's because they haven't found the right company and the right culture, but also sometimes it's through choice because they can see another opportunity. Sorry, Rachel, you had your hand up. Do you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think I would. The first thing I'd say is have a look at companies' websites. The company website will tell you a lot. Actually, you can read under the radar when we put our external websites together. It's not by chance. It's not a coincidence. We actually think about it quite carefully, and it's called the employee value proposition. It's all about how we, what we offer to people who want to join our organization. And the reality is that no organization is going to put anything in there that's not reality, because it's not going to do them any favors, because you just have a retention issue because you're not managing expectations. So we think quite hard about what's on our website, as will do other organizations, so you can get a feel for it. So it's things like, does inclusion run through it? Is there a veterans page specifically? What is it? What's the sort of tone of external websites? That'd be my first tip. My second tip would be, if you make it to interview stage, the people. So similar to everyone else who's spoken today, somebody said to me, pick 3 things that are really important to you when you're picking an organisation or a job, and they gave me, some tips about what that might look like. And for me, when I left, location was important, because of the stage of my life that I was at, and people were really important. And similar to John, I didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. I actually only went for one job interview, which happened to be this organisation. I went to the first interview, didn't have a clue what I was interviewing for, and I really loved the people who were interviewing me. It wasn't John, by the way. And and then I made it to the second interview, and I thought, I actually quite like those people. I'm gonna try a bit hard. I want to do a bit more research, and so because I think I might want this. And then I went to second interview, and I loved the people, and I still at the point of deciding thought, is this right? But it was so right, because I loved the people, and the people tell you what the culture is like. And then I'd say the third thing, again, if you make it to interview, ask a question. We're all a bit nervous, aren't we, at interviews about asking a question at the end. And we all think that it has to be it's part of the interview, and it has to be a very careful question. Just ask, can you describe to me what your culture is? Because they probably won't be prepared for that question, and their natural reaction to that question will be what their culture is. So it'll tell you a lot.
Right, John, to add to that.
You're on mute.
Someone had to do it, and I just wanted to be that person. I chose to do that. Right? I'm just picking up on that point that Rachel just mentioned then about asking, because that's what I had to do, because I do, 6 months in, I was at that point whilst this was the job that I went for when I left the military, and I'm still in the same place. So I've only had 2 employers, military and this. 6 months in, I did have a wobble, and I did turn around to my wife over lunch and say, I think I'm going to leave, because this isn't something that I was going to have. And that part about resilience and asking, there was something that they saw that we were good at, and it was that conversation that you can have. And at that point, I was going to leave, and I said, it's not for me, but they saw a different route for me. Said, well, that's how I ended up saying, go and potentially become health and safety, because you could also be good at that. That's how I ended up down the road, is by having the confidence before I left. There was something about it that I liked, but I wasn't sure what it was. Ask the question to your employer, and if you've got that transferable skill, and they can see something in you that they can mold, they potentially, an employer would keep you and remold you and say, okay, we know where you want to fit because we know what you're good at. You just don't know what you're good at yet, ultimately, but your employer will, because they will see something in you.
Yeah, and Andy, thank you, John. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that, particularly around the 2-year point, as Mike was talking about there. Is the first project I was on was coming to an end, and I had an offer from the client to go and join them and kind of run the job that we'd then been sort of built for them. But the big reason I didn't take it was the culture of the organisation that I could potentially go and join, and actually the support that I'd had through McAlpines in that initial development, and as I left the military, just was such an overweighing factor over kind of salary, permanent location, and the other bits that were on offer. So that kind of fit and culture and understanding. My interview was sort of probably quite similar to Rachel's experience. By the time I left that room, I was like, this is the company I want to work for. It wasn't necessarily that I knew the role, it wasn't necessarily I knew the bits, but it was, I kind of felt a really comfortable fit in that room rather than some of the other people in other offices when I walked around, I didn't feel particularly comfortable within. So you kind of get that feeling, and that was it for me.
No, it's a brilliant point, Andy, because it's something you can almost feel and see, isn't it? You just know when you're in that interview that, yeah, it's working, and culture's a massive part of that. So thank you for that. Rachel, thank you for answering the question as well. First of all, congratulations on your new role. So that is an amazing achievement. So well done you. You mentioned in terms of just where you're at, where McAlpine are at with the military programme. So second year of advocacy and moving into the supply chain is an excellent idea. So well done, McAlpine, for that. So whoever came up with the brainchild, but providing that depth and variety of roles for the military community is a brilliant idea, because the entire industry needs to be part of this. So well done there. You mentioned that productivity and performance is critical on your projects, and the military character feeds well into that. So can I ask, how did you get your personality and that character on a CV, or any advice you can give for others to do the same thing?
One of the top tips I had around CV writing was underline or highlight the key words that you want to really fly out to the person reading the CV. And I would say for this industry, a lot of it is around those soft skills. So find a way of really highlighting through your experience those character and personality traits that are so valuable. And ask yourself, when you're writing your CV or when you're refining your CV, what is it that's going to set me, a veteran, apart from everyone else? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be stakeholder management and engagement. It's going to be client interfaces and management. It's going to be leadership and management, communication skills, resilience, getting the job done. Getting the job done is massive. Find a way of pulling all those things out and highlighting them.
And to stop them sounding cliched on a CV, because we see them a lot as bullet points, is it weaving it through the experience to prove that you've done it?
Yeah,
okay, perfect.
That's how I did it. So yeah, you just highlight that word within an already existing descriptor about your experience, rather than, as you say, like this is what I've got, this, I would weave it into experience. But that's just the way I did it.
Perfect. And a question coming in from Paul Morris. Thank you for your patience there, Paul. Hi.
Hi, Angela. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Hi, Paul.
Yeah. No, hi there. I spoke to Mike earlier this year, and I had quite a bit of time on my hands before I was due to reach retirement. But John's comments about sort of feeling ground rush are sort of coming home now. Yeah. You know, I'm well into my final year now, so that really struck home. And Mike's already sort of partially answered my question, and it was the sort of concept of coming for a workplace placement, you know, to sort of see the company, find out about it, start to understand the language, start to understand, you know, what opportunities might be coming up in the coming year or so. And I was just wondering, as part of the veterans program within Sir Robert McAlpine, whether there was any formal program for that, or whether it was done effectively on a sort of ad hoc basis, getting in touch and finding out, and if so, who would be the best people to get in touch with. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Rachel?
we don't put quotas on it. So in terms of numbers and the number of work placements that we would want to do every year, it's ad hoc in that sense. You know, it tends to be BuildForce. Caroline will get in touch with us and say, I think this person will be great for a work experience opportunity, and then we try and facilitate it. And it's a little bit sort of on both parties. You know, it might be that we've as Mike articulated right at the beginning with his presentation, we've got projects in certain areas. So, you know, if somebody, if the opportunities are in Manchester, then, you know, it might be that the person has to come to Manchester for a couple of weeks. So we work with BuildForce around that and try and accommodate as much as we can, because we see the value in that. In terms of the programme itself, again, it's not set in stone. We would look at the individual, what they want to achieve, the sorts of roles. It might be that they are quite specific and they want a certain opportunity, and we would tailor it around that. Or it might be that they have no idea and just want to understand the construction industry, and those two programs would look very different. So we have a look at the CV, which Caroline always provides, an indication of, you know, what it is they're interested in. And then we put a programme together specifically for that individual.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask Caroline just a question on that in terms of the value and the benefit of those site visits and those work placements?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd ask. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, I mean, work placements are pivotal. You know, we've had people that we've put on a placement, there was no job, but they've realised how fantastic they are in that week. So if you've got any gaps, for instance, if you haven't got that construction background, clearly that's a little bit of a gap. But if we can get you on site or in a project office, then the team, the hiring manager, the project director just sees what value you have to bring to the organisation. It's like Rachel says, it's those soft skills. Quick case study for you. We had an engineer that we'd put on HS2 tunnelling program, but he had no tunnelling background. On day 3, the project director asked, you know, what would you do in this situation? So he had a little think, and he said, that's a fantastic idea, we're going to take that on board. All through the week, he kept asking our candidate what he would do. At the end of that week, that project director said, okay, no construction experience, no tunnelling experience, but wow, he was amazing, and he offered him the job. So you know, it's lessons learned on both sides, but you really come to life beyond that CV by getting on site. But then also, like Rachel said, and then I'll be quiet, it's a cultural thing as well. You can only know what the culture's like by getting in there. So I always say, when you're in that interview, you're interviewing them as much as them interviewing you, because you want it to be a real fit for you.
Okay, thank you for that, Caroline. That's brilliant. So our questions come in from Kevin. So I think he's a millennial. So he left the army just towards the end of '89. He's still a pup. He's got his best years left. But what he's saying is he's been a tower crane driver or a tower crane operator for many years, and he's maybe looking for that career change. So just before I ask McAlpine to respond back to that, just one thing to note is CICB have recently released a paper, it's about to imminently be released, and it was looking at communities and cohorts within the construction industry. The most sought after community for our employers are career changers. So people who are in the industry, who know the industry, who want to go on and do something else. So more employers are likely to do something for you, because they know that you're not going to leave, you're going to see it out, because it's a space and an environment that you love. The second community after that are actually our service leavers. So of all those that were interviewed and questions that were asked of our employers, our armed forces are sitting as the second most prominent community where there is a real demand and interest from our employers. So Kevin, you've got two things going for you. So I'm sure you've got a great personality as well, but you've definitely got two things going for you if you're a veteran to boot. But I'll maybe ask McAlpine if they can just advise on your case in terms of those career changers. Can we ask HR? Yeah, sorry, Rachel, please. Yeah, I was about to ask.
John looked like he was come off mute, and I
was about to say, yeah.
Hello, yes, hello, I'm here. Sorry.
I was just about to go on.
It's Kevin, I'm here.
Hello,
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. So sorry, did I paraphrase that correctly for you? You're very welcome.
I didn't actually expect to get through. It was just a message, really. But here we are. I won't put myself on video because I'm actually at work. So you know,
Hopefully not
we
in a
aren't
tag
busy.
train.
I have to say we're not busy. We are standing by, but yeah, no. So I'm very grateful to my site manager to allow me to join in with this conversation, and it has been very interesting. Basically, I'm 62 years old. As most people would say, is approaching towards the end of my career. But I have been in construction, both on and offshore, for many, many years as a crane operator and a lifting specialist. So as an AP, an appointed person for those that don't know, I would like to think that there might be something that I could bring to SRM based on my experience and my skill. But I may be wrong. You may subcontract that work out. I don't know. So hence the reason I'm joining in this conversation.
Rachel.
Go on, John.
John, sorry.
I'm just mindful of the fact that, hello, Kevin. Now, regards to transferable skills, irrespective of the fact that how long you've left the service, right? One of the things that we must never forget, no matter what stage you are in a career within Sort McAlpine, everyone will always add that value. The thing that we get, as we get longer service, there's all that knowledge that you would have gained, and that knowledge has to be transferred to the next generation, and that next generation we would class as our emerging talent. There is an element always of location, because whilst I sat there, right, do I type what location are you currently in? Because as the HR business partner for what is industrial, and we've got two huge schemes within Sort McAlpine, both at Agratas in Somerset and Port Talbot. A lot of those are tower crane drivers, and a lot of those will be AP appointed persons people. So we've got full teams in that area that we will always be heavily recruiting for, and we will always be having a resource requirement for. But it just depends on what route do you want to go down then, and it's always an exploration. It's what do we do after this call, and that's a part for Caroline and Rachel to say, look, our contact details are here. So I'm more than happy to share my details after this call, so you can have a conversation, just to pick up that conversation. Say, right, this is my mobile number, this is my email, drop me a line, and I'll have a one-to-one with
Ashley's already put her details on the chat. So Kevin, do contact Ashley.
I shall indeed.
We can go from there. Yeah.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
And Kevin, if you
by the way, 61's very young. Very young.
Oh, bless you. Kevin, if you can keep BuildForce in the loop, then we can track and make sure it doesn't get lost and it's progressing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Caroline. No problem at all. Thank you.
Perfect.
Lovely speaking to you. Take care. If I could ask Andy. So again, Andy, thank you for your kind words about BuildForce and Caroline, and I thoroughly enjoyed your support on Monday at the REME event. So thank you for that. You talked about kind of developing support structures. And you were reflecting back on your own transition. You mentioned the support of colleagues. I think around technical support was the example you gave. How can a service leaver avoid feeling isolated, indeed during resettlement and in those early months within a new employer? Because it seems to be a bit of a theme that we sometimes see.
Yeah, I mean, I think honesty is probably the kind of most important thing. And I probably went in, and it ties back probably to the interview process as well, which I have with McAlpines, whereas the project director, we have probably had a really honest conversation. I said, look, I technically I'll probably be out of my depth. I can do this and this for you. And his words back to me were, look, I'm not employing you to be a technical expert at the moment, but I know you'll come and do a good job. So it kind of gave me that kind of rope initially when I went in there, to not have that sort of expectation on me to be able to deliver in that area, and give me the time to develop, which was a huge benefit. And I was really lucky with that. And then from a technical perspective, one of the senior guys there just took me under his wing for the first couple of months, sort of explained all the terminology, took me around, and I could go and ask him every silly question, and he probably would never sort of turn away or laugh. And and it just made a huge difference to my sort of transition. But I think a lot of that was the culture that was set within that sort of project team. It was, honesty, using people for their skills. By the end of that project, I probably given more back than they'd had from me. But I felt that I had to give that because of the kind of initial support and input that I'd had. So yeah, I mean, I think kind of, you know, if you approach it with honesty, know what your sort of core skills are and what you're good at, play to your strengths, and then always have a curious mind and try and learn from it as you're kind of moving forward.
Right, okay, that's a brilliant advice. And again, thank you again for Monday. It was great to kind of spend time with you and just see you with the remate. It never leaves you, do you? Definitely in your blood. You were like brothers, the way you were all talking, whether you knew them or not. So I appreciate that. Mike, sorry if I jumped in ahead of you there.
No, if I may, I'd just like to go back to a little bit of a conversation we had earlier around attachments and interviews. I think a really important piece is that the company wants you, because I didn't get that for a while. They have got a vacancy and they're looking for the best possible person to fill it, and you are that person. So don't go in there going, oh, I'm so grateful to have an interview. I mean, that is part of it, but actually remember, they are looking for the right person to fill a vacancy they've got, and therefore be confident in your ability to do that. And the other thing on the attachment is it's a two-way process. So actually, if it doesn't fit for you, if it's the wrong company, you have not made a commitment, you've just learned some interesting lessons, and you turn around and say, no, thank you. So remember, this is in your hands. Don't feel you have to follow through because you've had an attachment, or something has happened in an interview and you feel you must accept it. This is your choice and you have the ability to make it. That was all I wanted to say, Angela.
No, it's an excellent point. A question's come in, but it was just the theme of it I just wanted to ask Jamie about. So Jamie, first of all, congratulations on your Masters, a huge achievement. So I hope it's a night of celebrations. You might delay till tomorrow night and kind of go gung-ho, but well done you. So thank you for joining us today. So you had a development plan of, if you like, from work supervisor up to package and then section manager and beyond. So whether it was luck or judgment at the start of your industry career, you saw the benefit of growth and keeping focused. So just it sparked a kind of question around, should a service leaver consider taking that step back or sideways to enter a new industry? So maybe for the Infanteers or the RAF, because progression always comes. And I think that probably just picks up on some of the themes around a question that's come in from Alzaz as well, in terms of should the role always suit their capabilities and aspirations? So it's just to ask kind of which one should come first.
I think, so for me, I started at a grassroots level and went up from there. And that was good for me to grow into a role. There's always a danger of going into something that is too big, and the demands of project delivery are quite quick. You've got to be on point and you've got to be able to get on with stuff and kind of know what to do. And it takes time to learn processes, learn how companies work, and really sort of understand where you need to focus your efforts, especially on site. So I wouldn't say don't ever worry about starting in an interim role or in a role where it's a probationary period or you get to shadow other people, because I think it's the only way's up. You don't want to be kind of, okay, it's a bit big, other people come into sport, and then you kind of rethinking, and then the confidence takes a hit. So some people, and I think there was a message I think you got from someone who got some university degrees in renewable energy and stuff like that. So they sound like the sort of person who could probably go straight into package management, as long as you understand in the type of package you're dealing with. And I think you've got to go into it with your eyes wide open. And the people around you have got to be able to understand where your strengths are and where you'll need time to develop. And so you going into a new role, you kind of fit into a team, and as a team, you'll deliver, rather than pushing someone out there for them to fail. So it's much better to start off and grow and develop, I'd say, if that's making any sense at all, than to try and take on something too big at once, because the opportunities to progress will always be there, because all you have to do is, you go back to your core principles, being reliable, you're hardworking, your loyalty, you're diligent, showing up, all that kind of stuff. And very quickly you will start progressing, and there'll be that desire to want to take on more.
Yeah, and it's going back to Yeah, sorry, it's going back to what Mike was saying, isn't it? That talent rises. Employers love great, talented individuals, and they will do everything to help you progress and to move you on through your career.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, I think it doesn't take long to shine, and you just show that you're keen, you're interested, you're motivated, and very quickly they'll want to give you more work because you can do it. You're capable of it.
Yeah. And Rachel, to that point.
Thank you. I echo everything Jamie's just said, and I think what is inevitable is that, because unless you've worked on a construction site for many years as a side gig whilst you're in the army or the military, which is unlikely, you're not necessarily going to have the technical skills of those others that you might be interviewing with or you're going to join on site, and so therefore I think it's inevitable that there'll be a period of shadowing, there'll be a period of working for somebody else. But what every single person that has spoken to you today and every single other veteran that you would speak to at Sir Robert McAlpine will tell you is that there's two things I would say that very quickly ramp up your pace on the Travelator. That is our ability to learn on the job quicker than most other people. That's what we do in the military. We change jobs all the time. We're not, you know, we're rarely the experts, but what we're really good is being a master of many things and being able to learn very quickly and learn new skills quickly. So you catch up very quickly. And then secondly, what you have far more in abundance is all the other stuff that is actually arguably more important, which is all the soft skills we've been talking about. And so, you know, Andy is a great example of this. Very quickly, in a number of months, he became the most valuable person. They never wanted to let him go ever. He was the last person to leave the project that he first joined. And when he first joined, he didn't have a clue what was going on. But he became the most valuable by the end. And then his career has catapulted very quickly, and he's overtaken others very quickly as a result.
And that's incredible. And John, to add to that.
You're on mute again. You can do it once, but not twice.
I'm going to do it a third time in a minute. All I'll say is it feels quite a taboo subject, right? Because we all know that we come to work to get money ultimately and pay, and that's part. So when I was leaving the military, I looked at what could I afford to do when I left the military, and I knew I was getting a military pension, so I had to try and cap that. Don't just naturally look at what the role comes with, what salary it is, because ultimately, again, exactly what Jamie's just said there, you will soon see that your skills and expertise, and you'll get more and more responsibilities straight away, and with that becomes generally a better package with regards to your hours. So don't, when you're looking for roles, don't naturally go to the bottom right and say, well, that comes with this salary, ultimately, because that will soon grasp as well and soon change.
Okay, and John, just to you as well, it is hard to take that next step in resettlement when you can't even see the staircase, let alone that first step. But to many of our service leavers who are looking introspectively at the moment in terms of who they are and the skills they possess, just to your career choice, what makes a good HR lead?
I would say having the ability to just have open, frank conversations. I think when you get into the civilian workplace, they're all adults. They just want to have the information. Just tell them. They're not going to be shocked with what you tell them. Give them the truth. Give them the right answer, to allow them to go away and make an informed decision. And I think that's what we're very good at as veterans. You can go into a room. You understand the room. You can deliver hard messages with empathy. And they're going to go home and say, okay, well, that was a really honest conversation I've had today. At least you can make an informed decision. And that's what we're I'd say that's what veterans are exceptional at, is the fact that they can go into any room. They can have that presence of, I understand the room, I can read the room, and I'm going to deliver a difficult message, or I'm going to have a conversation to develop someone and grow them, because I know the direction we go, and we can, we have a skill at navigating our way through problems that they can't see, and in an honest, empathetic, factual way, candid way.
You've got that way about you, John. I can just tell from the minutes and moments you've been speaking to. So thank you very much. Just to Mike, just to close, in terms of those interested in McAlpine, what should they do next? Would you like them to steer it through Caroline?
Yes, because I think BuildForce is such a key component of how we do things, but we've also put a number of our emails up in the chat. Please do feel free to reach out. I hope you've had, a useful hour and a half. We've tried to tell you what McAlpine is about, but actually I think what we've told you is it's about people, and so much of this is about people, and you ex-military individuals are brilliant with people.
Thank you to Mike, Rachel, Andy, Jamie and John for their excellent contribution today, and to our military community watching. Sir Robert McAlpine, an exceptional employer, ambassador and champion of the armed forces, and an even stronger employer within industry. So nurturing, invested in people, exceptional at enhancing talent, everything that you're looking for. So remember, you're not alone. BuildForce are here to support and guide you as you transition. So please get in touch if you have any questions to help take this further. CV and comments to BuildForce and we'll connect you. And I'll pass back to Caroline for some final insights.
Thank you, Angela. And as I said, military magic at its best. Thank you, guys. That was really great. So just a few events coming up from our side. We have a fantastic project day on the 27th of November in London. It's our fit out project day with Overbury and Morgan Sindall. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to see one of the most ambitious commercial fit outs in the UK, see where your fantastic skill sets fit and engage with the key contractors and consultants there. So that's the 27th of November. Drop us an email, go on our events page and book a place. And then our last virtual career chat of 2025, I can't believe I'm saying that, is in December, a fantastic one. It's our AI, the future of construction. So that'll be a fantastic session, another wonderful lunch and learn. So thank you to all of you wonderful people out there. You are marvellous. We all love you such at BuildForce. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.